Hello everybody, my name is Jared and today we are going to be filming an art video. More specifically, this is going to be a speed paint video. When I say speed paint, it is an actual literal speed painting video. This video is actually going to be documenting the gouache painting process that I've just recently gone through of painting 3 of my favourite characters from the NBC series Hannibal. If you watched this TV series, it is a very dark show. It has very mature themes, so if you are of the younger persuasion, I would not recommend watching this show. But if you are a bona fide grown-up and you are interested in horror and romantic themes and that kind of thing, you will probably really enjoy it. This painting is a present. It's a Christmas present for my partner. He is a huge Hannibal fan, and as am I, but his favourite character is Will Graham, who is the lead character of the Hannibal TV series. If you have watched the TV series, you should hopefully be familiar with the 3 characters that are pictured here. These are Will Graham in the centre, Hannibal to the left, and Abigail Hobbs to the right. This little video will have fairly big spoilers for the series, so if you haven't watched the series, I do recommend watching it before this video, or if you don't really mind spoilers, just settle in and I will convince you as to why you should watch this show. Now, Hannibal is a crime show. Very loosely, the plot is Will Graham is a teacher for the FBI. He teaches people training to be forensic scientists in the FBI. It's more forensic psychology, but Will Graham is heavily implied to be on the autistic spectrum, which I really appreciate seeing. And he is approached by a detective that he knows sort of loosely, and the detective asks him if he would be comfortable with helping them with a case, and that is kind of the setup for the beginning of the show. The plot can be summed up with Will Graham is helping them try and catch various different criminals, but the overarching criminal that they are trying to catch is the Chesapeake Ripper. The Chesapeake Ripper is, now this is the spoiler, actually a character called Hannibal. Hannibal is a cannibal. Yes, the matching name. But Hannibal is a cannibal, and he is actually also a psychiatrist. So Hannibal is brought into the show by Jack, the detective, and Jack actually hires him to keep an eye on Will Graham's mental health, because he worries that he may go off the deep end with his sort of innate ability to empathise with serial killers. Now, I have waffled on about the show a little bit too much here, but as you can see, I had started with my basic sketch. I did do my sketch in graphite, though I came to regret that. I do prefer to sketch in paint. At some point I will do a video where I explain what sketching in paint is, but there are videos on YouTube explaining how to do your sketchwork in paint itself. But yeah, I do prefer to do that, but I tried it out with this one and it did still work out. I just had to deal with the graphite smudging around a little bit when I was painting the lighter colours. In this painting particularly, I actually had quite a lot of trouble with the skin tones. Skin tone is something that I'm really slowly trying to hammer out in my paintings. I'm trying to learn how to create realistic skin tones, and that has been a long and arduous process. Realistic skin tone is a very difficult thing to achieve, especially in more opaque medium. The reason for that is that the skin, when you look at it, is not the colour that most people would pick when painting skin. The skin on a lot of characters, going from Caucasian skin tones for this painting, there's a lot of yellow, a lot of blue, a lot of red, a lot of sort of actually quite saturated colour that is sort of like an underlay to the other colours. and I did struggle with trying to bring those hues into the painting without it looking really weird and oversaturated. I don't think I achieved it as well as I would like to here, but it is something that was really, really good practice here, and I am gonna continue to work on as we go into 2021. I used some very loose reference. I just found some pictures of the actors or of the actual characters themselves on Pinterest, and I worked from multiple different references to try and get their skin tones right, as well as the pose and the expressions that I wanted them to be doing. I wanted both Hannibal and Abigail to be giving him kind of like an affectionate look, but I wanted Abigail's to look a lot more friendly and Hannibal's to look a little bit more threatening. There was a lot of back and forth when painting the skin tones, and I actually think that the one that I did the least well on was actually Abigail. I have always found it very difficult to take more risks on painting women. I think you can get away with a lot of darker shadows and things on male faces than female ones, just in my art style. I think because women tend to have softer features, so I did really struggle, particularly with Abigail, especially because she is quite a lot younger than the other two characters. I will go into Abigail very briefly. Abigail comes into it very early on in the series. She is the daughter of another serial killer that Will Graham catches, and Will Graham actually kills her father and saves her, and they have a very almost parental relationship. He becomes very, very attached to her, and due to his abilities to relate to these serial killers, becomes almost a surrogate father figure to her, much like Hannibal does also. It's commonly in the fandom referred to as the murder family of Abigail. She happens to be one of my favourite characters. She is my favourite character in Hannibal, and happens to be one of my favourite characters ever. I also find the aesthetics around Hannibal very, very, very interesting. They use a lot of really bizarre visuals, which I love. The visuals in this have... they just stand out. Such as people... This is going to get a little bit graphic, so if you don't like gore, please ignore the next couple of minutes. So, there are characters that get skewered on deer antlers. There are people growing fungus out of themselves. It's a very, very, very graphic show, but also very, very artistic. Everything is done in a very, very interesting way, and while I wouldn't say the gore is tasteful, it's also tastefully done for a very gory show. Now, since I am talking about Hannibal, I will address the sort of elephant in the room. Hannibal has very, very interesting character representation when it comes to romantic relationships. Whether you believe this or not, the show has a very, very LGBT-friendly atmosphere. There is a canon LGBT relationship in it, as well as an almost universally agreed LGBT lead characters. So, the majority of the fandom will agree that Hannibal and Will have a very romantically charged relationship, and it happens to be a ship that I ship quite a lot. I think it's very, very interesting. I think their dynamic is really interesting, and while definitely not a healthy dynamic, it is one of my favourite attempts at the kind of bad guy, good guy romantic relationship. If you have watched the whole series, you know that particularly in the ending of the second season and the entirety of the third season, their relationship becomes increasingly more romantically charged, even getting to the point where one of the characters very close to Hannibal agrees to Will that Hannibal is in love with him. Particularly the ending of Season 2 and Season 3, Season 3 being the last season. These endings are very, very romantic, and if you were portraying this with a man and woman, it would be undeniably a romantic ending. The show also features a lesbian relationship. Technically, the lead character of that relationship is a bisexual woman. Her name is Alana. Alana is shown in relationships with men and women, but ends up married to a woman with a child. And yeah, Margot is her love interest, and they have a very, very sweet relationship, while also still having that dark edge that Hannibal is kind of known for. Their relationship seems fairly healthy, and I think that they are very, very sweet together. They also are absolutely stunning. The actresses that play those two are beautiful, and they make a very, very good couple. I spent so long working back and forth on the skin tones in particular in this one that my battery died, and I actually had to change the battery to another one, and when I did that I actually lost a pretty big chunk of the footage, which is very, very sad. So I know that you have noticed that there is a big jump between me working on the skin tone and then having laid in the flats for the hair and eyes and that kind of thing. You honestly didn't miss an enormous amount. It is just laying down kind of basic flat colours, as well as continuing to go back and forth, tweaking the skin tones. One thing that I always think about with gouache painting is that the ugly stage lasts for a very, very, very long time for me. If you don't know what I'm referring to when I say the ugly stage, particularly with oil, acrylic and gouache and sort of opaque mediums, there is what we refer to as the ugly stage. The ugly stage is just when you have laid down sort of your first strokes, you've not really tweaked much or like pulled much together, and it just sort of looks like a big smudgy colourful mess. One of my favourite sections to work on is adding facial hair and eyelashes and freckles. Little skin blemishes and things like that are really, really, really fun to start to add in, and they've really pulled together the final image. I have so much trouble with seeing things as complete, and I do have a tendency to look back on old paintings and be like, oh, I should tweak this and tweak that. And you should never try and do that. If you really, really want to, like you love a painting and you know it's just a little tweak that you think you could fix now, you definitely can do that. But I think it's always better to just start a new project and to move on to something else, because it will be bigger and better things, and you definitely, after creating that piece, will be able to make something better. Every single painting that you make is a stepping stone to the next really good painting that you do, regardless of how well that painting went. The way I like to think of it is that every single painting that you make makes you a better painter. So if you don't make one, you're not going to get any better. You don't see it here, but around this point is when I start to add things like the details on the lips and in Abigail's freckles. These really pulled her face together, and I feel like that finally helped me to separate her features a bit more and make her look more like herself. While I still think that she has the weakest resemblance to the actual actress herself, I do like how she came out, and I like how all of them came out. I think that they do have a fairly strong resemblance to the original actor. Now, once this painting was completely dry, I went in with a off-white / cream Posca marker, and these are just like a paint pen, and I drew on some really, really simple symbols to represent these characters. So with Abigail, I have a teacup. If you watch the show, you know why that represents her. And for Hannibal, I had the deer horns. And for Will, I actually had a, I'm not really sure what these are called. in the UK we call them like a crown of thorns. It's usually a religious symbol and drawn very heavily towards saints and Jesus and things like that. So that is the finished painting. I'm really proud of how this came out. I think that it looks really, really beautiful, and I feel like it represents the show adequately. I always feel like I want to create these big painted pieces to kind of pay homage to the things that I really, really enjoyed, and I absolutely dare you to not fall hopelessly in love with Will Graham. Hugh Dancy does a fantastic job of playing him, and he is just impossible to not love. I hope you guys have been enjoying my painting videos, and as always, please remember to be creepy.